so the FedEx man just came. I have no idea. Pretty sure it is a starter for my Arctic Cat. Which, if you're in small engines, you saw that. Sometimes I forget when I order parts. And it is awesome. So we'll do this in another video too, but right now we're going to do a summer-izing video on my snowblower. So it's a little bit different than winterizing. So winterizing, we want to make sure nothing's going to freeze. Maybe do an oil change. Make sure the gas is drained. Not too much different. I'll show you guys how I do it. There's many different ways, but basically it essentially comes down to these like 3 or 4 things. So one is drain the gas, run it out of gas, so you run it with the gas shut off, run the carburetor dry, put fogging oil in it. The last thing I do is put a little bit of fogging oil where the gas comes into the carburetor, so the gas inlet. So I'll show you guys how to do that here. Let's get going. Sorry for the background noise. I'm working outside today. Fairly nice. It's like 50 degrees maybe. I love having my tools on a cart. So, first things first, we'll get into tearing this thing apart, get into the gas tank, and find a fuel disconnect on the carburetor. Here's something that's funny too, is that I don't know whether it's standard or metric. Some things on these are standard, some are metric, so that's why it's always nice to have both on hand. So about this snowblower last winter. Well, yeah, I love these little magnetic tool or parts tray. Yeah, bought it last year, brand new, super expensive. But what do when you gotta get the job done? You gotta get the job done. So it looks like everything's metric. I might not even have to take this off. I think I spent, gosh, almost $500 on this thing. And I bought a Briggs & Stratton. Why? Because I went to all those workshops and they donated engines, so it makes a difference. So I haven't taken this apart before, but it doesn't look too complicated. But I have to tell you, this is very similar to the engines we worked on at school. In fact, it might be the same one. I don't even know. Seems like I've taken her apart before. We'll stop right there. I gotta go grab some fogging oil. And I'll tell you guys about that stuff. Alright, so I got some fogging oil. This stuff, there's a couple different brands that have this. Stabil's pretty well known for doing stable gas stabilizer. This says to run the engine for 10 seconds while spraying this, and then spray it in each one of the spark plugs. I have, there's another brand I know that you run the engine and you spray it till it dies. But we'll shake it up a little bit, go ahead and fire this thing up. Oh, one thing that's nice about the Briggs too, why I bought this motor, guaranteed to start in 2 pulls, or you can get it serviced up to I think it's 20 below it says. So if this doesn't start in 2 pulls when it's 20 below out, you can go get it serviced for free. And to be honest, 20, 30, 40 below, I've never had to pull this thing more than once. Well, that's a lie. I have had to pull it a bunch of times, but that's usually because I forgot to turn the gas on. So I'll turn the gas back on right now, then we'll start it. Run it for 10 seconds. The only thing that might cause it a problem to start right now is that the primer bulb. I removed that. You know, maybe I'll hook that back up and get a couple pumps. If you guys notice, I disconnected the ignition too. But most engines default when you unplug this ignition. When you unplug the ignition here, when you unplug that, most time this is a normally open circuit, so the only time that it can be shut off is when you actually turn the key and you make this connection and it closes the connection and then it grounds out. So, all right, primed it up. I don't have the ignition hooked up, although I probably should if I want to shut it off again, huh? Move on, primed it. I'm gonna plug it for 10 seconds. Well, that didn't last long. See, that's the way I've normally seen it, is where you start up the engine, run it, and then fog it, and it'll die. I'm gonna turn the gas off, start it again. I've had engines run on fogging oil before. Okay, see, that's the way I've normally done it, is shut the gas off, run it until the carburetor runs out of fuel, and then when you're spraying this in, it just floods it with too much. I'll pull the plug, put a little fogging oil down the spark plug, and then I'll spray a little bit down the intake of that carburetor. I might as well take a look at the spark plug while I'm in here. That's actually something we're going to be covering pretty quick here, is spark plugs. I'll take a look at this, make sure it's in good working order. You can see it's already flooded. It's got a bunch of fluid on there from spraying that fogging oil in there, which is good. That's what I want, is to coat the cylinders with that oil. But the spark plug looks good. Nice white. It's probably kind of a little bit hard to see. No carbon buildup or anything. Well, it shouldn't. This thing's like brand new. So I'll put a little shot down the spark plug hole. Good to go. I'll put this back in. One thing we're going to cover spark plugs next, I think it is, or maybe next week for sure. This crush washer here, you're supposed to replace these if they're smashed down, and that's how a lot of these companies will tell you to torque a spark plug. Alright, so all set, good to go. I'll put it back together, but if you think about it taking probably 10-15 minutes of time to put this away properly, when it's the first snowstorm next fall and you go to pull this out and fire it up, it's ready to go. I have never had an issue after doing this to an engine, and the gas is probably the most important thing. According to Briggs & Stratton, they said that today's gas is only good for about 30 days. Now, I used to buy 93 non-oxygenated gas for all my small engines, and actually what I've done since then, instead of spending that kind of large amount of money and buying gas for all my small engines, I just use stabilizer in it if I'm not going to use it within 30 days. Most of the time I go through gas. As something runs out, I'll go buy it, fill it up again, and it's not a big deal. So, alright, I'll slap this back together and then we'll have a few questions for you at the end. So all said and done, can't see what the time is, but really not that bad of a job. Put my tools away and good to go.